Hey everybody, welcome. Good evening. It is Monday night, 7-ish, as always, and this is The Yard Sign. Thank you so much for watching, whenever, wherever you may be doing so. I'm Jonny Torres, your host. As always, we appreciate you as we are going to be bringing you this week's news and politics live from Tampa Bay, Florida. And again, we appreciate those and our ever-growing audience on the audio version of our podcast. You can subscribe to any and all of our social media platforms, and if you want to catch the audio version of our show, you can do so over at the Tech Overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, and Samsung podcast platforms. And I'm sure there's some out there that I didn't quite get in that list, but we'd certainly love for you to look us up, subscribe to us, leave us a review if you can, and then of course tell your friends and family to tune in. Speaking of family, we want to give a quick shout out to Mama Chambers, our good friend Chris Chambers, who is running for office here locally, has informed us that she's watching all the way from Mississippi. So hello to Mama Chambers, and we appreciate you watching the show, and hope to have you here in town soon to help with your son's campaign. Excuse me. We've got a great guest that you can kind of see peeking inside here, so we'll get to our special guest in just a moment. And tonight's topics, we got school redistricting. Obviously a very hyper-local topic, but it is certainly something that you want to keep an eye on regardless of where you may live throughout the country, because, as you might imagine, shenanigans at play, as always. And so make sure that you keep an eye on the redistricting happening in your district. Also, we're going to talk about student loans. Obviously, Democrats and progressives continuing to push for the cancellation of student loans. Excuse me, again. We'll talk about why Biden's never going to let that happen, although they are talking about maybe eliminating a portion of student loans that are out there. And so we'll obviously be talking about why that should or should not be happening. And then, could there be a recession ahead? Right now, there's a lot of indicators that economists are pointing to, saying that there could very likely be a recession hitting us here, maybe by year's end, maybe even just down the road into next year. But it's almost imminent at this point, given, again, a lot of the indicators, a lot of the factors that are happening economically, not only nationally, but internationally as well. All right, let's go ahead and jump into tonight's, excuse me, man. Let's get over to the table as we introduce our panelists for tonight's show. I know, thank you. Of course, it happens right when the show's starting. But over on the far end, trying to hide his identity. That's what you're doing, right?
No, oh, wait, it's not on. Oh,
no, of course not.
It couldn't. Oh, wait, look at that. It works. Well, at the moment,
Anibal David Cabrera, everybody.
As we start to get infected by whatever bronchitis that Jonathan has of some sort, God only knows. Yeah, it's been good. Good times. I am very excited to introduce our guest today. She is amazing.
Thank you.
And
you want to do it? Go ahead.
No, it's fine. You can do it.
Go for it.
No, it's fine.
Well, you've known her, I think, longer than I have.
You know what? I don't feel comfortable anymore. So, Jonathan, please go ahead.
Well, I put too much of a spotlight on you?
I have financial reports that need to get done.
Please.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Let's stop fighting over her.
All right. Allie Marie. Now is it Legge? How do you pronounce the last name?
Legge.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes.
All right. Just making sure.
It's my husband's fault. Looks weird.
Yeah, I know. He never shows. Was it Legge?
I mean, I tried to get him to change it to Legge, but the family is like not taking
Put
it.
a hyphen somewhere in it. It should work.
Right, Legge.
A little posture.
A hyphen.
That's what they called me when I was in the army. It was like Legge.
There you go.
It was funny. But they liked calling me Legge too because I wasn't airborne. So.
Well, tell us a little bit about that. So you are currently running for office here in Hillsborough County.
Yes.
You're running for school board, District 6, which is a countywide seat.
Yes.
Now, for those of you watching, I have a trusty laptop pulled up here for me. Normally I don't, but your website, voteallimarielegge.com, and that's Legge, by the way.
Yes.
The rest of it's kind of spelled as you might think. ALYMARIELEGGE.com, voteallimarielegge.com, and actually you come up pretty quickly in the Google search.
Awesome.
Once you start typing Allie Marie, it comes up, and
That's fabulous.
Yeah, so
Just the way I like it.
you got that working for you.
Yeah.
Whoever did your website did a good job, apparently. So.
Thanks, Matt, my husband.
Well,
You're
there we
awesome.
go. Good stuff. And so tell us a little bit about that. Give us a little bit of background. You kind of hinted at the military service. And
Yes.
So where are you originally from?
Well, I'm an Army brat, so
Okay.
I've been everywhere. I was born in Killeen, Texas,
Cool.
which is Fort Hood.
Yeah.
Been in Germany as a little kid.
About as military as you can
Yeah,
get. Going
pretty
from
much.
Texas from Fort Hood to Germany.
Right. And then we lived in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which is like the flattest land ever.
I've heard.
And it's the most boring. But I was a kid, so I didn't really notice. You know,
Yeah.
when you're a kid, you can kind of just play. So,
Well, I've heard the best thing about Oklahoma is Texas.
well, I mean, I don't think they're wrong. So then we moved from Oklahoma to New Jersey, and New Jersey's kind of where I call home. I still have a lot of family
Oh,
there.
okay. I'm sorry.
I know.
No.
Especially now with
I'm
the
joking. Actually,
climate.
last week I flew into Newark, which was the first time for me.
Yeah.
And, oh, man.
Newark Airport
rough
is
stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, that airport looks like it. I mean, it's literally lipstick on a pig. I mean, because you can tell from the outside, it looks like it hasn't been touched in 40
Right.
years. And then you go on the inside, and then they got some nice shops, and they got they got little TV, video,
And then you walk
devices
outside and
everywhere,
that stench hits you,
Right.
and it's like, oh, what is that?
I still remember when
Yeah, luckily it was a little cold, so it was kind of
It's not that bad.
dampening some of the smell.
I still remember when the international and domestic, those two different terminals would not connected.
Yeah.
So you had to walk out of domestic, it's usually always raining. So it's raining or snowing and you're getting drenched to get into international. So you look cute for your international flight and then you are
my God.
soaked the entire time.
Oh no.
I didn't realize how spoiled I was. I mean, I'd always flown into either JFK or LaGuardia.
I like LaGuardia.
LaGuardia is nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fancy.
It's nice in there.
And so, what point did you get down here to Florida?
Well, I got married and I moved to Arizona.
Okay.
And then just stuff happened and I ended up in Virginia with my mom.
Wow,
and
literally, you've been
yeah,
quite
I've
all
been
over the
pretty
place.
much everywhere.
That's awesome.
Ended up in Virginia with I think he was like 6 weeks old, my son, my oldest.
Okay.
Pending divorce. It was just an awful situation.
Yeah.
And then I met my husband. We were like friends then when I first got there. My mom was a part of Family Readiness. So what she did was she was the financial advisor for all of the, military personnel on base so that she could help them, figure out what they're going to do with their life and how they're
Afterwards,
supposed to, spend their money while
Still a
they're in
big
service
problem,
or when
yeah.
they get out of service.
Right.
Because they don't really teach you financial literacy when you're in the service.
Thank
and then
you,
when
Governor
you're
DeSantis.
right. Thanks. Thank you. But when you are going overseas and you're being deployed, you kind of don't really prepare yourself for when you come back because you don't really think about that, right?
Sure.
Like when you're deployed, you kind of think of, well, this might be my last time. So, and then when you do finally come back, you spend all the money you earned while you were out there as like a repayment to yourself. Like, oh, I'm
Well,
alive.
because you
I
got to
can
get
spend all my
settled in.
money. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, or you go and you buy a house and then you don't stay because the Army's like, screw you in your house. You're moving.
Oh,
so,
no.
It's like they know when you're making life decisions. Like, nope. No, it's like
Nope.
God. You make plans,
Yes.
they change it all.
Yeah, they change it. It's fabulous. But then I joined the military and I went to Missouri. It's the worst place.
Well, that's what.
Fort
That's what
Lost in the Woods,
That's
Missouri.
what the arch is for. It's just to get from one side of Missouri to the
Right,
other.
right.
Just
It's
like-
just, I mean, you go through all 4 seasons in like the matter of a day. It was so bad.
Yeah.
But while I was there, I ended up like I broke my foot and my hip. I was still gung ho though. Like,
Wow.
Yeah, I did a 5.5 mile ruck march, and your rucksack is like this backpack you have on.
Yeah.
And it was like 20 pounds, 15, 20 pounds. I was only like maybe 100 pounds soaking wet.
Wow.
And I had thought previously we were doing these drills, and I previously thought I had just rolled my ankle, so I like wrapped that, like,
Sure.
you know what I mean? You just
Yeah.
wrapped it real quick, and I was like, I gotta go. We
Suck
gotta
it up
finish.
and move on. Yeah.
Yeah, because I got to finish what we're doing, and we did the march. I was like lagging behind in the march, and then we got to where we were going. We were doing like this team building exercise, and And I was told to like kind of, hey, like come over your leg. Like, what's going on with you? Why are you limping? Like, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing, I'm fine. I'm fine. We're gonna keep going. And we kind of got into like this argument, and they're like, fine, just do whatever you want to do. And I kind of finished. But when we got back, I couldn't march back.
Wow.
I had to be driven back. And when they got back and I went to sick hall, I found out that I broke my foot. And then a few weeks later, I went back and figured out I broke my hip.
Wow.
So I did all that, like still, and then I'm still broken doing like military presses, like still trying to do crunches and like walking around with my, like crutching it. Like that's just the kind of person I am.
Sure,
like I don't take no for an answer. And if there's a will, there's definitely a way. So I'm definitely a fighter. It's always been in me. I didn't grow up very, very, in a very nice household, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
There was a lot of fighting, and I was molested when I was a kid. So a lot of this stuff is like that we're seeing in the schools right now is very concerning, especially when you have like sexually explicit content that our kids have access to.
Yeah.
And being in Florida, we're like third in the nation for calls to the hotline, and we're second in the nation for human trafficking. So, I mean, we are surrounded by water. We have a port right here, Tampa Bay. So it's like, if our kids are being exposed to this kind of material, it's kind of opening that door to be exploited.
Well, we're seeing what's happening on the border with people being smuggled in all kinds of ways.
Right. So it's really concerning, and it does damage children. The younger they are, and the more they're exposed to sexually explicit content, it does damage them psychologically and emotionally and mentally. And it's not a good fit. And you would think, having someone that has a psychological background sitting on the board, you would think that she would know that, or at least, research it.
Sure.
Especially if you're working in a wing of the VA that deals with PTSD, and many of the service women that go to the VA for PTSD have had sexual abuse while they've been in combat.
Well, that was, one of the unfortunate things. And if anybody knows me, I have no problem bringing up, again, the pros and the cons of everything, that we are dealing with as a country. And one of the things that I came across in working in Senator Rubio's office is that there is a rampant problem with sexual abuse
and assault
in our military.
Yeah.
And it's not just among those that are enlisted.
Right.
I mean, there are children of those that are enlisted that have been affected, spouses, and the problem is that because the military has their own court system, basically, they suppress a lot of it, and none of it, and rarely does it ever get outside of the military facilities. And so the general public truly has no idea how bad it is and how much of this is really going on within our military.
And then you think about it, it's kind of like in politics, right? Like when you have big name politicians that are accused, or big name movie stars that are accused of, sexual abuse, and it kind of gets pushed onto the victim, like it's the victim's fault, or it kind of gets pushed under the rug, and that's why you have 20, 30 people come out of the woodwork, at the same time, because courage is contagious. And when you announce that, you're not afraid, you're showing people that you're not afraid to express, what you've experienced with this person, it brings to light, maybe I have that strength and I can have that courage to do the same thing.
Well, and it's so many levels, because we were talking about something completely different, school related before the show started, but it's amazing how strong the fear of retribution is among people. And again, we're not talking the military. We're talking about within our school system, within corporate America, within our community.
Fear is debilitating for anybody, especially when you have someone that you view as more powerful than you.
Right.
That is in a different position than you are, and you feel like you're an insubordinate. So fear is it's debilitating. But the way that you combat fear is, what is your willingness? What are you willing to accept? Are you willing to accept that you're a victim?
Right.
Are you willing to accept that, this is what you're meant to deal with? Or are you going to push forward and say, I'm not going to accept this anymore. No, you can't treat me like this. No, I will not be silent, and just push forward no matter what people say to you, no matter names people call you.
Right.
You know, I've been called names my whole life, right? Like, so moving from Lawton, Oklahoma, you have like a really thick country accent. Can you imagine me? Like a thick country
Yes,
accent.
I can completely.
But
I do it all the time, like playing around.
But
you slip into
before-
it all the time. It's amazing.
But before you get all of the support, you
Uh-huh.
know, and all the people that come out who are empathetic and compassionate about what you've been through.
Oh, it's terrifying.
Typically, but I was going to say, most times you're dealing with the blowback first.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, before
most
you
definitely.
get to the
Most
compassion
definitely.
and the empathy, you're dealing with the blowback
Right.
of coming out and speaking out.
But you know, you have to figure out where your strength comes from.
Yeah.
And I know whose I am, right? And I know where my strength comes from, and I know that no matter what happens, God's got me, right? So, so that's where you have to find that faith in that, right? Like I'm giving amens over here. He's like, yes, Lord.
We've had
No,
these
but
conversations.
seriously,
We've had these conversations.
yeah, we
And
have.
at the end of the day, if you don't know and you don't have that bedrock, you are lost.
You are. You're
How
lost.
can you lead others when you cannot even find your own core?
Right, it's true. You know, and then, you know, and this is something that I've been speaking about for the last, I think, want to say year or so is, you know, I've dealt with so many different things in my life and I've been called so many different names. So moving from, like I was saying, moving from Lawton, Oklahoma to Newark, New Jersey, which is like the hood of hood.
Yeah.
Like
Wow,
I'm gonna take my
culturally,
earrings off and my
yeah.
shoes and we about to bang. Like that's the different culture shock I
Sure.
was in. I went straight into middle school. You know, my hair was down to my butt. I had wavy, like Spanish curls. I got threatened every day that some girl was going to cut my face.
Oh, wow.
I got threatened every day that some girl was going to cut my hair.
See, my mom and her
Fights
sisters
all the time,
who
like-
originally immigrated to New York, dealt with a lot of that same bullying.
Right. So I wasn't black enough for the black kids. I wasn't Spanish enough for the Spanish kids because I wasn't fluent in Spanish, but my mother's Puerto Rican and Spaniard.
Oh,
So
wow.
like, and my dad is African, Irish, and Puerto Rican too. So there was no Spanish in my household.
Yeah.
Really. We kind of just spoke English because my mom is a first generation American. I'm second generation. And when she got here, when her father moved her from Puerto Rico to New Jersey, he was raising her and told her, you know, mija, you can't have an accent because if you have an accent, people are going to think that you're not smart.
People don't understand the pressure as a Hispanic,
Right.
especially first generations, when it came to them coming to this country, attending school, going to work, that they tried their best for their children not to have an accent.
Right.
Right.
To ensure that there was a seamless transition
Yep.
of integration.
Yep.
And there are benefits and there are also negatives to that, but it was in the best interest at the time that they felt
Right.
for us.
Different generation and different time period, you know, so us not being able to, and so what's really funny is we moved from the black hood, right, to like the Spanish hood. To like Newark, New Jersey to Perth Amboy.
Right.
And I mean, it was pretty much the same situation. It's
Yeah.
just because how dare you call yourself Puerto
Just
Rican? You
different
don't
languages,
speak,
yeah.
you don't speak Spanish. How are you
Sure.
Puerto Rican? I'm like, I am, I swear. I know a little bit. I can swear
Right.
at you. Like that's about it. That was about it.
Yeah.
But so when I tell people that I've dealt with more racism by people that look like me than by other races, they're shocked to hear it. And then when I get on the national stage and I'm explaining to people that CRT is racist, you should imagine the backlash I'm getting, not just from white, and I love y'all, but not just from white liberals,
Yeah.
but from black people too,
Right.
Spanish people too. Like, how dare you? Oh, you got to be the token black girl. Like, first
Sure.
of all, a quarter of me is offended. Like,
Well, then nowadays there's
it
a
is
lot,
what it is. Like,
and it's unfortunate because you know honestly it's part of the motivation behind this program. It's the fact that you know we almost have to, like, those of us that are Hispanic, that are minorities on the Republican side, almost feel like it's a responsibility to have to come out and be public and be vocal and because you always get that, well, it's just you. There aren't a whole lot of you, and that's the.
Oh, and
that's
I know
not the
so
truth.
many that think
Right,
like me.
Exactly, you know, and there are so many.
just quiet. They're
and
afraid.
The numbers are growing incredibly.
Yep. They don't want to be
And-
called bad names. They don't want to be called a coon. They don't want to be a
Right.
race traitor. They don't want to be any of that. But you know what? I've been called a white supremacist.
Yeah.
Do y'all see me?
Right. Yeah. Anibal's been called. You know, Anibal's been called a communist. He's been
Girl.
called
Girl. The amount of times I get called out from within our party, but especially from outside of our party, of being a race traitor and not being a part of the community and not expressing the examples that we are. And then I'm like, but you're using Latinx. Yeah. Like you're automatically adopting white fragility right there.
Like, first of all, I'm not even gonna lie. When I first heard Latinx, I was like, what the hell is that?
I thought it was a rapper. I honestly thought it was honestly, and I don't listen to rap. I'm like,
I had to do like intensive research because I was like, wow, that's what that is? I had absolutely no idea what that was.
Still a better rap name than Bad Bunny.
Okay.
Well.
Let's calm down. Now that's when
I can say that because he's
Colombian.
Colombian. So
Is?
oh yeah, him, Maluma.
It's that cocaine money. Okay.
Maluma's Colombian.
Yeah.
I want to meet that man one day.
Oh, y'all, we are a minority group today.
Are we?
right.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
I know.
So,
But yeah, so
credit score
So let's bring
dropped
it back.
20 points.
I don't even. So I'm not even doing it to speak out because I feel like I need to be a voice for
conservatives.
Dark
Republicans,
conservatives,
right, yeah.
or
Brown people.
brown.
Well, no, your motivation came
Honestly,
from being a mom.
right? Well, my motivation is one: I took an oath to serve this country, right?
Yeah.
And just because I'm no longer in doesn't mean that my oath expires.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you start to see things that just don't quite make sense, like our government telling us who's essential and who's not essential, that part of your body kind of wakes up and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't really sound right.
Yeah.
And then the more you start to do research, because I'm telling you, nobody does more research than a concerned mother.
Yeah. That's right.
We turn into FBI agents, especially Latina women.
Oh, and these Facebook groups are nuts.
Yo,
I love it.
the amount of information that I've been able to find just by staying up till 3:00 in the morning doing research has been insane. And I mean, and that's why I hopped into the race because, this is crazy. Like the school board, people don't understand. I'm going to tell you, I want you to listen. The school board race is the most important race.
Yeah.
Entiende?
Yeah. Generationally. Yeah. If you talk about the generational impact that it has on our kids and our communities, I mean, it is. And a lot of people, and it's one of those things that you don't really learn until you get involved.
Right.
Because everybody likes the shiny DC star.
They like the celebrities.
They like, then they love the Fox News and all that stuff.
I want to be a congressman. I want to be a senator.
Yeah.
Boo-boo, you've not done anything.
Right.
Not only that, like, you're not going to get anything done.
No. Not locally.
And, right. And so what people don't realize is that what's really affecting you is your school board, is your city council, is your county commission.
That's the first touch.
You educate the child, so goes the nation. Right. But how do you educate the child? You educate the parents first.
Yeah.
And it's a generational thing with education. So you can tell the trajectory of a country if you pay attention to what they're teaching their kids. Mm-hmm. And that's why I hopped in the race, because where we're going is not going to sustain the America we know today or the America we used to know.
Right.
Not even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We're going in the complete opposite direction. Like, who would have thought in 2022 we're battling racism? Like, are y'all serious right now? Like, we really?
Right.
Really? We have to create laws to keep teachers, adults from talking about sex to kids. Like that's what we're doing.
And you see it in these TikToks of these kindergarten teachers with rainbow hair, and they're saying these absolute ridiculous things, and you're like, why are you even introducing that to our children at that age?
Like, if you can't talk about sex in your workplace without being fired for sexual harassment, you should not be talking about sex to children.
What is with liberals talking about sex with children? When did this become a thing?
Well, in other regards, in terms of, what you were just saying about racism, I mean, some people's clocks broke about 40 years ago. I mean,
this is not 1960.
I heard Reverend Al Sharpton speak at an event, and
still listen to him.
And
that man has less than 10 years. I would say less than 5, honestly.
I was paid to be there, so I mean, let me just preface it. So,
be honest about it.
Hey, I cashed a check.
So that's right. And he's saying that you shouldn't be proud of being where you're from in this country. He goes, because we are not from here. We were brought here. And it's like, God, it's like this guy has been beating that drum.
Wait. Hang on. Let's dissect that. You shouldn't be proud of where you come from.
So he talks about people being, the black community being territorial about being from Atlanta or being from Miami or being from New York or being from Selma or being, and he says, he goes, I don't know why you're getting all worked up about all these places that you think that you're from. They go, you're not from here. It's like, we were brought here. Was kind of the overall message.
You can go back.
It's,
there was an entire program in the late 18th century and 19th century that allowed people to go back.
Well, and so
there are entire countries in Africa that were designed that allowed slaves to go back after.
Right,
after
but the point
Civil
being
War.
is that here we are in 2022, and he is continuing to perpetuate this division. He's continuing to perpetuate this disdain for this country.
Want me to tell you why?
Well, other than it lining his pockets, I mean,
Let me tell you why. It's easier to distract people and keep them fighting each other than it is to be worried about who is making all the decisions and fighting them.
Yeah.
When we are divided, and they're doing it on purpose because they're dividing everything, every aspect of all of our lives, they're dividing us all.
Well, and you don't have to hold them accountable.
No, you can't. No, you don't,
Right.
because you're too
Why?
busy focused on, does your neighbor like you? Is your neighbor, sympathetic? Does your neighbor, virtue signal to whatever it is that you feel in your heart they need to virtue signal about, instead of worried about, well, the BOCC stole $500 million from me, and now they're also trying to do another tax, or our school board is trying to, sexually inundate our children. That fighting those things is way more important than
And they
worried
want you to be
about
distracted.
than worrying about whose skin color is what color. That's not where we are, because you can be from Cuba and be darker than me.
Yeah.
You can be
Absolutely.
from Africa and be lighter than you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think people forget that.
Yeah, my
With
Costa,
these-
I had a former stepfather, who was Costa Rican, who was darker than you.
Right.
And
I know Costa Ricans that are blonde hair, blue eyes.
You have some
so-
Peruvians that are more Japanese than anything else. And
Right.
Asian looking. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand. In the Hispanic community and in that culture, in the Latino community, race isn't that much of an issue in regards to, you see everything. You see it all. And sometimes they're even more racist than the Americans here in the country. And so we have a completely different position when it comes to racism, and how it's just within families, it's hit back and forth. But what I want to get back to in this conversation is how I feel the CIA needs to be run by mothers, and then the State Department run by grandmothers.
Okay.
Hold on.
And because
State Department
the amount of dirt that is found from those women at the villages is intense.
Listen.
Yeah.
And if
It's
you
something
give,
serious.
and again, if you create mama bears every time they go after kids, and every time they're trying to separate and they're trying to be divisive, because what unifies all of us is that we have children.
Yes.
We have grandchildren, we have nieces, we have nephews, and you want them to be able to be educated the best way possible.
Yeah. Well, let's get this back on track, because again, we, aside from Hillsborough County, which you're running in, shout out to our friend Jennifer Licata, who's running in Hernando County.
Go girl.
And her thing is that she is literally the only. Well, she would be the only parent on the school board if she wins.
Oh, wow.
Like, none of the school board members are actually parents.
Here's the thing, though. What people get really confused about is like, you're not a teacher and you're running for school board. I'm like, guys, have you read what it takes to be a school board member? That's not on the list.
There are
right.
some counties in
not on the list.
Florida that to be a superintendent, you don't have to have a diploma.
I mean, it wasn't
Yeah.
that long ago where
Yeah.
where we had a school board member with a high school diploma.
Yep.
Didn't have a college degree, didn't have any kind of secondary education, any kind of secondary experience in anything.
At least have the experience to be able to do some of the stuff. We know friends that are sitting on education and boards that are doing much more good for
Right.
children than the people that are sitting in school boards right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's bring it
But
back.
as
So what brought-
parents,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
you're a child's first educator, right?
Yeah.
You literally teach them everything that they need to know throughout their entire lives. Like, it doesn't just end in a school. And if we're putting this notion that experts, if you have a degree, you're an expert. And if you're an expert, then you're the only one that can tell someone what to do and how to do it the right way. And that's not even close to what the American dream is. That's not even
Right.
close to what reality is. And look at where experts has left us over the last 3 years. Like, if we're just going to continue to focus on experts and listen to experts, then I mean, you get what you vote for.
And that's what we're seeing now. That's the pain that people are seeing now, that they voted
Right.
and they thought they were going to get something better. And now
Right.
we're in a position where it's even worse. Student loans are going higher than ever. Interest rates are going higher ever. People are paying more at the pump ever. Again, everything's higher. That's what you wanted. And now you're seeing the ramifications.
What's
And
most important and how you fix it is by knowing, one, the proper role of government, and two, the proper role of office that you're aiming to sit in and represent the people in.
Well, I was talking to our producer over our pre-show dinner. You know, I was telling her how last night Trevor Noah. You know,
I don't get invited to these dinners.
Trevor
I don't
Noah
either,
got. You just never make it on time.
Same to you, honestly.
And Trevor Noah did the White House Correspondents' Dinner and did a great job. You know, it's not an easy job, and of course, the assumption is going to be that he's just going to go up there and kind of bootlick, you know, the whole thing,
Right.
You know, especially given that he's, you know, he picked maybe the biggest shoes to fill in television and has not been able to do so. No. But you know, I mean, I was saying, you know, I would have thought that Ricky Gervais maybe had written this monologue for him because it was so on point. There was some heavy hits, you know, that he took on the administration. And my favorite one was, you know, he goes into President Biden. He goes, yeah, you know, things have really been looking up since President Biden took office. You know, food is up, gas is up, you know, inflation is up. I mean, it was like, ooh, the room got real uncomfortable. You know, it's but that's the role, right? That's the role that you play when you're hosting the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And I thought he did great. He came in with some hard punches, some soft punches. He even at the end, you know, he says, okay, you know, before we wrap this thing up, you know, he goes, because, you know, we all know how great the Biden administration is at evacuations. And,
Oh my goodness.
so some of you who may be more dismissive typically of the White House Correspondents' Dinner, I'd recommend you go watch it. It's definitely one of the better ones in recent history. Again, props to Trevor Noah, who actually has had more of an awakening, I think, to what's really going on over these past 3 years or so during this whole pandemic thing. Yeah. He's really been pushing back more the way Jon Stewart used to do to both sides than, you know, again, just kind of carrying water for the left.
Well, for the longest time, he was more of a, I think I'm using the right word, a shrill.
Yeah.
Of just the Democratic Party, and now you're seeing that it's almost indefensible now. It's very difficult to defend the Democrats, especially when you're in that position that he is in, and he's also coming from a outsider perspective.
Well, and how everything they defended them on has now turned on them.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see where he lands on. At the end of the day, they're all going to go for the Democrats. They're never going to say anything positive about Republicans because they think that we're all racist, homophobes. Like, that's what they think.
Well, the other great line from the dinner was, you know, he goes to the audience. He goes, you know, for the past 2 years, I mean, you know, you people have been kind of telling, you know, lecturing people about staying away from large gatherings and events and wearing your masks and all that stuff. And you get invited to one dinner, and all of a sudden you all turn into Joe Rogan. You know? And so that was again one of the other great lines, you know.
Well, the other big dinner that they had
lines,
in DC was another super spreader. Like half the people in there got COVID, and now they're having another one of these. It's the hypocrisy of it all. It's like seeing the governor from California a year ago, like frantically, like having it at a restaurant when half the country is unable to even go outside of their homes. Like it was rude. And I think they're going to pay the highest price, which is getting a lot of these people out of office.
And then speaking to that point with, you know, the hypocrisy is when you have a sitting candidate who used to be vice president tell Black Americans, if you don't know to vote for me or Trump, you ain't Black. If you don't think that's a racist statement, you might want to go back and check what racism means in the dictionary.
Oh, and there's plenty of actual racist statements coming directly from Joe Biden.
Oh my gosh!
On the Congress.
Can you imagine if Trump had said that? Like the whole world would have exploded.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Even if anybody, Marjorie Taylor Greene, if anybody would have said that, like it would have been.
It's unforgivable, and unfortunately, there are way too many people in the Black community that I know looked the other way.
Oh yeah,
you know,
it shouldn't have been excused.
At what they call Jim Crow Joe. I know they call him that.
I know
they call him that.
I was very upset.
And they chose to look the other way, you know, because of some mean tweets. As we
guys, we need you now. Like we need you to speak up.
They were so adamant about getting Trump out of office that now look what we have. Yeah. Look what we have. We look weaker than ever before. Even when he makes the decision, we still look weak because it's 2 months behind schedule. Us getting out of Afghanistan, it's just a crap fest. Us trying to help in Ukraine, we're literally a year behind what we should have been doing. Us trying to figure out the economy, it's a complete mess. Like every single thing keeps on falling apart. And again, what I'm expecting to see is how big this wave is going to be in November. And I think that's going to carry a lot of candidates that are in blue districts over the winning line, because I really do feel that there are some districts in Hillsborough County and in Florida and in the country that is still +2, +5 Democrats, but with the depressing of their vote and the increase of the independent and red vote, and even some blue Democrats are going to vote red. It's going to be interesting to see where this all falls off.
All right. Well, on that note, let me go ahead and reset the show because we actually haven't even started on tonight's topics.
Sorry.
We kind of. Well, no.
We touched on a few of them.
Guest.
Well, and Allie's been here before, though.
She's still a special guest.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. We are going to go ahead and get into, speaking of, again, how the upcoming elections are going to affect, being that we've had redistricting at the congressional level, at the state legislature, and then now, I think since December, this is something that you've been beating the drum about, which is, I believe, when the last maps came out was in December for the school redistricting. So give us kind of the Cliff's Notes on
that was such a long time ago,
where
you
this
guys.
is at. I know, right?
Girls, it's been 6 months. We're almost halfway through this year.
I know. That was such a long time ago, but I do remember looking at the maps, like in the demographics. There was a map that was submitted by, I believe it was Stacey Hahn, and it was the most even for all demographics. Like that's, the Latino community, the Black community, the white community, like Asian, Pacific Islander, like everybody, it was way more even across all demographics, this map. And instead of going with this one, they went with a map that just completely is not, it's just not, it's not okay. It's not an okay map.
One.
Like,
I think I
you might want to be able to pull
Lindsay's able to pull one. I have this one, which is the December one.
Yeah.
Now this is the one you're saying that they went with instead of the one Stacey Hahn submitted.
Or there was also a citizen approved map, citizen submitted map, I would say, that didn't even get looked at. And the excuse was, well, it has to be submitted by a board member, but that's nowhere. That's not true. Like that was a lie. But there's also a, oh my goodness, there's a lawsuit that a few people in the district have filed based on this, and they're saying that a few of the members, sunshine laws broken, which is, listen, our board is notorious for law breaking, and you would think being representatives, and that's one of your jobs.
They literally lie in front of people.
Right. Like you are supposed to, that is your main job, is to know your role of office, right?
Yeah.
Know the proper role of government, but your third job is to know the statutes so that you are aware of what laws you have to follow in order for you to properly do your job and represent the people properly. But if you can't do that, then you should not be sitting on the board. Like there has to be some kind of repercussions for that. We can't hold our elected representatives to a lower standard than we do the regular, Floridians. That just doesn't make sense.
Well, see, and this has been the unfortunate side of the demise of media is that now you have fewer people kind of watching the throne, as they say. And so, whereas obviously they would tend to protect oftentimes those that were either left-leaning or those in power, there were instances like this where they were the ones that would call these things out, and
now our media is complicit.
They're either complicit or they're just not watching. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the staffing to be at all the meetings to truly cover. I mean, we have, Marlene Sokol, I think, who primarily covers education for the Tampa Bay Times.
Jeffrey Sholachek, I think.
But think about it. The TV stations aren't sending people to school board meetings unless there's some contentious issue.
Right.
And we're down to, what's left of a newspaper.
Right. Well, and then when you completely disregard a candidate because she says things that piss you off, or breaks your narrative.
Well, and that's a whole nother conversation has been the rules that they've implemented in terms of public comment.
And the decorum that they're screaming for.
Which, okay, first of all, nowhere in our state constitution does it say that you have to be very polite when you address your representative.
Sure.
Nowhere in our United States Constitution does it say you have to be polite when you address a representative. And it also doesn't say that you can't use their name. If you are my direct representative, I have every single right to call you out publicly. Every single right, because that is my duty. I am your checks and balances.
Right.
I hired you.
Yeah.
If I'm your boss, how in
you
any
voted for
business,
that person.
right? How in any business
Or
is
they
your boss
represent you.
not allowed to come to you and tell you, hey, listen, I don't like what you did.
Yeah.
And we keep coming to you. And obviously, if you have droves of people coming, which, by the way, if you do show up to your school board meeting or your BOCC, you represent 100 people from your area. So it is important that if you have an issue and you see an issue, you go to them specifically for public comment.
Right.
That's the impact that you have. Side note, well, that was a side note, but
Well, and most people don't
Yeah.
realize that,
No.
again, much like their state legislators and their Congress people and senators, that their school board members are also people that they can go and schedule a meeting with and
Right.
sit down and talk to.
So here's the thing, though. When we are not answered, when we call you and email you and we ask and request to have meetings with you and we're constantly ignored, and then we come to you and we're screaming at you at public comment, or we're reading, sexually explicit books like I've had a mom do twice a month for 12 months and literally nothing's happened. And the only thing that they're telling us is there's a process for that. You can report one book, one school at a time. Dude, we have 200 books. You know how long that's going to take us?
It's
Right.
not even that. You have
So-
people, you have adults
Well,
bringing
the main-
condoms onto high school campuses, and no one knows how the box got onto high school campus.
Well,
they
they
just know that an adult went on campus, gave it to a bunch of kids, and then walked on campus. And you're telling me one of the most prestigious high schools in our county couldn't tell, with all the cameras that they have in that building,
Right.
couldn't tell me.
Oh, cameras malfunction somehow.
either someone is protecting someone or it's incompetent. Either or is
Mind you,
disgraceful.
just to get in the building, you need to get buzzed in.
Yo, parents aren't even allowed in buildings anymore right
Right.
now. Like
Yeah.
parents are still COVID's dead. Like COVID's not here. Like we're still not allowed to go into the building. We have no access to our children. So not only are you telling us that what we're finding, right, that they're learning or that they have access to, it's not there. It's not there. We're being told it's not there, yet we have proof that it's there. And yet when we, now you're telling us that we can't have access to our kids, right? We can't come in and see them. We can't have lunch with them. We can't. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that is just crazy.
That was one of the most fun times when I was younger, and my grandfather would come to Bellamy Elementary for, it was like a grandparents like lunch like every month, and the grandparents would come in because it was a very Hispanic community at that time, and you had a lot of these grandparents dropping off their kids again, and we know this because it's a more of a multi-generational household when it comes to Spanish people. But you have that in that part of the county. You have it in West Tampa, you have it in East Tampa, and people don't understand that now. They can't do that. My father did that to my niece just 2 years ago, or
Right.
right before the pandemic, and they've yet to be able to bring it back.
Well, the problem is, and just quickly to your point, the rules are created to discourage the very thing that
Correct.
you're trying to accomplish, right? But in regards to access to the schools, now it's down to the school administration to determine whether or not they want to allow parents back onto the campus. And so you have to imagine that there are administrators out there who simply don't want to give parents access to the school.
I wonder
because,
why.
I mean, in some cases, obviously, that requires a lot more oversight and and a lot more responsibility. But then in other cases, again, it's just going to bring up more problems,
Right.
Right, and the more you can keep them at bay.
I mean, when you have children that are identifying as animals and you have litter boxes in hallways or in bathrooms for these kids, no, I'm not joking. They're called furries. I'm not joking. And it's serious. It's a thing here in Hillsborough County. I promise. And when you have, a transition closet that's secret where kids can come in dressed as what their mom or dad sends them to school, and they can go into this transition closet and change into the gender that they identify in, and their teachers and everyone else in the school can call them what they identify as, but then change to go back home. Like it's becoming a camp of secrecy.
Sure.
Of people that we
And
don't
enablers.
vet.
And
enablers. So
Enablers.
like honestly, as a mom and being, very vigilant about what my kids have access to protect them, their childhood innocence, right? Because like we said earlier, there's value in childhood innocence, and we want to keep them children for as long as possible.
Right.
But when you have these situations where you know, you have kids on transition plans without parents' knowledge, like literally changing into a different gender without your parents' knowledge, and then trying to keep that away from the parent. You know, as a parent, you know, we take them to daycare and we vet the daycare.
Right.
We take them to school, but we don't vet the teacher.
Right. Yeah.
We trust the county that the county's going to do their due diligence, but yet we have, you know, children that are coming out of Blake High School talking about a teacher raped me or, you know, sexually assaulted me, and students are sexually assaulting other students in classrooms or in bathrooms, and every time there's every time there's some kind of like sexual human trafficking bust, there's always a teacher that's involved. Like it's terrifying to imagine that we're allowing this to happen and then we're being closed off. But we all know that parental involvement in education is one of those main pillars that help children. Important. It is you're right. It is the most important.
And let me say this, because I am a school choice advocate, although my daughter does go to a public school, because her mom and her aunt are public school teachers.
Yeah, it's co-parenting.
But I'm definitely in favor of school choice. But don't confuse that with there needing to be a more transparency and oversight of those schools.
Correct. Absolutely.
Because what a lot of people don't understand is that some of these teachers that get in trouble or are found to be ineffective in a public school, where do you think they end up?
Yeah, they end
up at the charter schools.
Well, and then the reason why they do that is because when they're found out, the district does nothing about it. They don't get reported. They're not arrested. They don't get their license removed. There needs to be more teeth. Yep. There needs to be more consequences for these teachers that behave badly.
Well, then you have the ones that are just hanging out downtown, riding a desk, because they don't want to, deal with the payouts with the unions or the contracts and getting to all the legal issues.
And all of these, and this is such a small percentage of the actual teachers that are actually teaching our kids of having these issues. It's then demoralizing the effective teachers and the bright teachers that are doing what needs to get done every single day to make sure that kids have clothes, that kids are getting fed. These basic things that no one realized that I think the pandemic was probably one of the best things that happened to this country. I will honestly say that, because it showed the light that was really happening in education, when it came to public safety, when it comes to our hospitals and everything else, and even to the point of where government stands and where it doesn't stand. Who would have known that you would have been having pastors arrested in Hillsborough County because they were still having services after when the pandemic was occurring? And you know what? That could have been handled so much differently. And you don't understand. Now they got arrested and they got released. They're not getting put in jail and getting fined every single day in Canada and in Australia and even Sweden. But you got to see where the level of freedom really is.
Right.
Yeah. And that was really scary. And then the second part was education. I got to see what my kids were learning. I got to participate because they were in the room, because I had to work from inside the house.
Right.
And now that kind of disclosure of like, well, what are these administrators actually doing? What are the kids actually doing? What are they actually teaching? Why are you reading that book in third grade? Like, what's going on?
Well, what's crazy is that actually there was just a report done, and I believe it's in the New York Times, talking about teen mental health, and obviously how much bigger of a problem it's become because of the pandemic. Now, what's interesting though is that along with that though, because of the pandemic, because kids found themselves at home a lot more. They weren't allowed to go out. They weren't allowed to go attend social functions or be social. And again, that's important in development. Okay, but there has been a huge decrease in teen sex, been a huge decrease in teen pregnancies, huge decrease in teen drug use, huge decrease in teen smoking. I mean, all of these things that typically parents are trying to protect their kids from, and again, have come about because of the pandemic and because of the lockdown, and so, I mean, we have to find a balance there, but I mean, to me,
it is starting to rise though now.
Well, of course,
all of those things are starting to rise again, right? Yeah. But we're also seeing that with parents not being involved in schools and not involved in their children's everyday lives, which nobody can control that, right? Like our teachers can't control everything. Right. That it's not their job. Their job is to literally just teach these kids how to read, write, history, math, science, like all these things.
Well, but to Anibal's point, they're already inadvertently asked of so much more.
Right. Well, and then that's also part of the district's problem too, right? We have these people that are all the way at the top that are so far removed from what it means to be in a classroom and they're not even asking. Like I asked a constituent, soon to be, I'm already on the school board, y'all. So I already asked a constituent of mine who happened to be a teacher. Like she was concerned because she's like, you're a parent, you've never had, experience in a classroom. So I'm worried about, having a parent sit on the board and tell me as a teacher what to do, especially when, I try to explain to other parents, like, the issues that I'm having in class with certain students and I'm getting pushback or, my job is being threatened. So I'm a little worried and I'm like, listen, I understand, but we have over 80 years of education. We have over 80 years of education experience on our school board right now. Has any of them ever reached out to you and asked you what you need from us to help you do your job? Her answer was? Her answer was no.
Yeah.
Her answer was no.
Something has to
And
change.
I'm like, you know what? Well, here I am. And I know how important your job is to my child and to the children of this county. I'm here extending my hand to you. How can I help you do your job?
Right.
And she didn't have an answer for me. It took her 20, 30 minutes to give me an answer. You know what her answer was? I'm a veteran teacher. I need to stop having 4 meetings a week. I need to stop being watched like a hawk. I need to be able to just teach my kids. That's it. That's all she wants.
Right.
She wants hands off. If you're a veteran teacher, you should not be in meetings 4 days a week. You shouldn't. You shouldn't need somebody looking over your shoulder to make sure that you're doing your lesson plans right. You're a veteran teacher. You already know how to do that. And if you don't already know how to do that, you should probably think about something else to do.
Right. And there are metrics by which you can hold them accountable. I mean,
Right.
But those metrics are, and I think that's the biggest problem. And again, we can go round and round in circles
Yeah.
of things that are having issues. Because again, my wife is an educator, and so I hear these horror stories that are happening in the schools that she's been to throughout the years. And you're like, I don't understand. My first comment has always been, how on earth, and I'll be as blatantly honest as possible, how on earth, as a female-led industry, do you guys not have the best healthcare and pregnancy and all that kind of services that would not, like, what is
Like
the
our
union
teachers,
doing?
Yo, they can't even take 6 weeks of paternity leave.
Right.
That's
You can't even take
crazy.
6 weeks. Like, what is your union doing for you? And yet they go around and they tote, well, you guys are going to get a raise. Okay, well, how much? You get a raise, right? And your teacher's dues go up too.
Of course.
So you're already paying $755 a year.
Wow.
I might be off by $10, but
Right.
Give or take a few
That's
bucks.
crazy.
But still, you already pay $700 and some change a year for your teacher's
And
dues.
you can't get 6
and you
weeks?
can't get 6 weeks.
Yeah.
6 weeks after
Yeah.
having a baby,
When
you
I-
have a hole 10
My-
centimeters in your freaking. Like, come on.
Okay.
I'm serious though.
Yeah. My mother's daughter had to claim disability.
Yeah.
That is.
And
You
there's-
shouldn't have to do
And
that.
so teachers know how there's a whole piece of paper. I've seen the piece of paper of the roundabout so that you can get additional time. And I'm
Right.
like, that shouldn't be a thing. That
And we
should not be a
we
thing.
got lucky that she was born right before Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
the
And the
planning
holidays.
baby.
And the
planning.
holidays. Yeah.
And so that's one thing right there that annoys the hell out of me when it comes to education, our education system. But the other one, but then there's so many other little ones,
so
and I'm
many.
so glad to see that you are running. And we've talked about this already. I'm so glad that you're running. I'm so glad that your energy and your focus and everything else. And I'm very excited to see what district you will land in now that the maps have been
Well, so tell
confirmed.
us.
Ruh-roh.
Let's wrap up the topic with what was wrong with the maps, or what is wrong with the maps, and then and kind of where do things stand? What do parents need to look out for?
Gosh, come on, man. That was so long ago.
Yeah.
I know.
My brain is not even on redistricting anymore. My brain is on like all this
So I
other
mean, has
stuff
it been
that's on
settled?
there.
I mean, is it just is everybody just
no,
kind of moved on?
there's a lawsuit, so we don't even know what that's even going to look like.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying? So
So they may have to be redrawn.
Right. They may have to be redrawn, depending on what happens in the court system. I mean, and you guys kind of know how our court system works anyway. Like, it really just depends on
week
what judge.
before.
Right. You kind of know it just really depends on what judge you get, And if you don't get the answer that you want, you can take it to a different judge and see if you get the answer you want. So it's just, but this is another problem I have. Our district doesn't know where $62 million went, or almost $200 million went in the month of March.
Again,
Yeah.
give that budget
But-
to the women.
Oh no, they have that
the
miscellaneous.
teachers.
The
Well,
miscellaneous.
Yeah,
budget,
the
remember?
other, right? But wait, they have all this money for litigation.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and electric cars. and-
Lucy, you got some explaining to
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Oh, they're never going to explain. I will say this, and I'm going to throw it out there because I don't care. District 4 has there is rumblings that there might be changes afoot when it comes to Melissa Snively.
Well, we just got word today that she's not going to run
she's
again.
not running.
Did you get the message?
Well, I saw it on Facebook.
I know. I was being a little bit more. I was teeing it out there. My gosh.
Everybody gets it. But if you honestly, look at District 4 here. Look at how huge that is. Like that is huge.
And that's one of the fastest growing parts of the county.
Right. There's no possible way one school board member can handle that district. It's not okay.
That alone could be 3 districts.
Right. Like
that's why I was surprised that because they took so much away from District 2 and District 3.
And that's why I like the citizen map the best, because it added a district. And honestly, if you think about it, we kind of really should have 7 separate districts, right? Instead of having 2 county-wides, it should be 7 districts. If you had 7 districts, it would break everything up a little bit easier and more even, to where, you wouldn't have District 4 have this enormous amount of land with all these schools. You have the most. She's got like the most schools.
There's
no way a school in South Tampa has anything common with a school in Apollo Beach.
No.
Well, based on the criteria that you told us that they have to meet, I mean, there's no way that District 4 meets that criteria.
That's what Melissa Snively was saying too. I mean, that's what a lot of people were saying too. This map is just so disproportionate.
Just sheer population alone. There's no way District 4 meets that criteria.
No.
I mean, you're talking about, obviously South Shore.
And I had this. Let me see if I can
I get District 5, even though I'm surprised that it took away as much of the west side of District 5 as I thought it was going to. But the fact that West Chase and Citrus Park are not in the same district make absolutely no sense. Plant City should honestly be its own. It should be its own district. I don't know why the northeast corner of Hillsborough County it's not its own district as well.
The citizen map had that. That was like District 6, I think.
And then the shoot up from District 2 into like Brandon
Well,
or like Riverview. Oh my gosh!
Everything north of Bloomingdale
This
should
makes no
be
sense.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
we can keep on going.
We're getting too deep into the weeds, but
Deep in the weeds.
let's go ahead and talk about a similar but not really a topic in terms of student loans. Let's go ahead and reset if you don't mind. Thank you everybody for watching the Yard Sign. Don't forget, if you miss any part of the show, you can catch the video version on Facebook and YouTube, and then you can also catch the audio version of our show on any of the podcast platforms out there: Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and Samsung podcast platforms, and many others. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode if you're enjoying it. Our next topic is going to be student loans, as is one of the campaign promises that Joe Biden made, mostly because of the pressure he was getting from Bernie Sanders, in terms of promising that Bernie was obviously promising that he was going to do away with student loans, even though sitting in Congress, as Senator Sanders is, he knows that the government actually federalized, a lot of the student loans in an effort to fund Obamacare. And that alone right there is why Joe Biden is never going to repeal student loans. Ever. And he is, they're talking about, maybe pacifying, because again, the progressives are just, up in arms about this. They're ardent and angry and frustrated because they want him to because they've obviously, since the pandemic, they've been pushing, the goalposts back as to when they're going to start, charging people for their student loans again. And so what they're hoping is that they'll cancel the student loans before they go ahead and reopen, the collections again. But I maintain that there's just no way that Congress agrees to repeal even a portion of student loans, given that they are so dependent on the revenue that comes from it to fund the government. Were you able to take advantage, based on your service, of any of the kind of educational stuff?
Nope.
No. All right.
I taught myself.
Yeah, look.
Listen, as long as you know how to read, you can really teach yourself almost anything.
Yeah, my parents paid for 2 years of college for me. I ended up going to a broadcasting school, and and that was enough for me. And it's been it's been a blessing.
Well, I had a problem when I went to college. I was in college, and my major was psychology, and I went in and I did the first semester, but the entire semester, all he did was stand there in the first 20 minutes of class and say, take out your textbook, read this chapter. The chapter's 400 pages long, and then they want you to do an outline and come back in and then hand in the outline. What am I paying for you to teach me when I'm teaching myself? So I was I'm not
and
doing
they wrote
this.
the book.
Right. I'm not doing this. So I dropped out of the psychology class and taught myself what I needed to know psychology.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen, especially because of the pandemic, it's really pulled back the curtain on higher education in terms of people really second guessing, well, what am I paying for?
Right.
And if I am going to an elite school, or a top tier school, even let's say like a Florida State, a UF, am I really getting my money's worth? Or am I getting the same education had I gone to a junior college or had I gone to a state college?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, you and I know, we all know, I mean, once you get into corporate America, nobody's asking what school you went to.
For any of that. It's so weird.
You're never going to show anybody your diploma. And then aside from what you studied, nobody cares what school you went to.
Right.
Unless it's unless it's some kind of boys club, or that sort of thing where
I've seen people get in fist fights over Florida State in Florida.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but
it's not that serious, guys.
That's not
It's because
determining
y'all didn't go to a state school.
No, but it's not determining whether or not you get a job.
In Jacksonville, it is. In Gainesville,
I'm sure it is.
oh my God, in
I'm sure it
Gainesville?
is.
But it's a very small percentage. Nobody's, it may matter in some local business.
Now,
in
do
some
I
local
not talk to
firm
people
or-
that graduated from the University of Miami? Yes, that is a preference. I'm allowed to have that preference.
Lies. Lies. You talk to Danny Alvarez?
Yeah, but that's because we all fall short from the glory of God.
Amen.
Call you out on your nonsense.
Anywho.
So
I don't even know what's going on right
So
now.
really, does this become another issue that's going to take down Democrats in the midterms and the presidential election? Because this has become the new drum.
So
the left has literally run out of stuff to complain about. This is the topic du jour for them. That they're all worked up about.
So the Biden administration, the Biden administration, oh, that's a good one. Biden administration is discussing about in talks at the moment to be able to wipe out $10,000 per student of their loans for each borrower. The total would be amount of $245 billion, according to the nonprofits, in regards to the responsibility of the federal government budget. So I think that's great.
What's that, like 1 year for most people?
I know. Well, actually, I think I haven't looked to see what the percentages of those that are under like 20,000. It's pretty high. The problem is this is never, the left are never happy. This isn't enough for the left.
Yeah.
They're like, well, why aren't you doing 50,000? You said you were going to do 50,000. Why aren't you going to do 50,000?
Oh, all of it. They want to cancel all of it.
Cancel the whole thing. All $1.7 trillion worth of it.
Meanwhile, those of us who didn't need it and still managed to, pursue our careers and succeed in our careers, now are going to be footing the bill for it.
Succeed, but yes, continue.
Oh, thanks.
Oh my!
With friends like you, who needs enemies, right?
I have a check for you in my bag, by the way.
Oh, good. That's what I like to hear. Those are the kind of friends you need.
Thank you.
The ones that carry checks for you.
Take it easy. Take it easy.
I'll even deposit it for you, boo boo.
Cuídate.
Yeah. Well, so Allie, you have a beautiful family. You have, is it 3 kids, 4?
5.
Wow, 5.
I have 5 babies.
Yeah. So
I birthed 4, but I'm a bonus mom for one. He's in communist
I love that
Virginia.
I love that phrase.
Yeah, I love bonus mom.
That's a good one.
Thanks, Disney. Stepmom. Stepmoms have like a terrible name connotation with that. Thanks, Disney.
Oh, let's not even get into
Disney.
Disney and family representation.
Oh boy.
Well, there's usually a dead father somewhere,
or a dead mother.
or
Oh my
a dead
God.
mother, or
Pixar's the worst.
Yeah.
And they always make me cry.
damage.
It is emotional
All I'm
damage.
going to say is this: Bambi. Yeah. You're looking at my
Where's
Wait,
the
Fox
dad-
and the Hound. Listen,
Where's
I
the,
can't. My heart.
where's the dad in Toy Story? Nobody even talks about that. Where's the dad in
where's
Toy
the dad
Story?
in Toy Story?
Mind you, she has a baby at some point.
Yeah, I don't know.
No
He's
dad
working.
anywhere. All right.
Wow, this went deep.
This went deep.
It's a lot of scarring at this table right
So
now.
what's the college trade school conversation like in your household?
So my oldest wants to go to college because he wants to play football. Like
that's the best.
That's it. And
Right.
he's like, I'm gonna go for business management or like entrepreneurship
Yeah.
because
Okay.
he already is 14 and kind of owns his own business in a way.
Great, love it.
And he has like a 20-year plan. He wants to like invest money. Like my kid, he blows me away
should've-
all the
should've
time.
talked
He
to
like
him.
he wants to invest money. He wants to get into marketing. He wants to do video marketing and the advertisement. It just his mind is just a mile a minute.
Yeah.
And I always encourage him. Like I tell him ever since they were little, I'm like, baby, you can do anything. You can do anything you put your mind to without limitations. And that literally means like if you don't feel like doing it, then you're not going to do it.
Right.
But if you want it and you have that drive to go get it and anything is possible, you believe in yourself, that's all that matters.
Right.
We live in the land of opportunity.
Well, and the truth is that this generation, so the generation right after us, really, I mean, in including your son, they have never been more empowered than they are more empowered than any generation that has ever existed.
Right.
Given what they have at their disposal. I mean, you as a parent, you buy them this
computer.
$1,000, $2,000 device, and they can start and run a business
Yep.
from it and not need a computer.
Nope.
Because it
is.
is one.
It's a mini
and,
one.
and anything and everything that you need to do to run a business can be done from that phone.
Right from your phone.
And so it begs the question, right? Because funny enough, the origin story for Five Guys was this. They had I think it was 3 sons. The family had 3 sons, then there was the father, and then I think there was like a family member or something like that, making it the 5 guys. Well, when the sons came up to, it was time for them to decide whether or not to go to college, they said, well, we have all this money saved up. Okay. You have 2 choices. You can either go to college or we can start a business
Right.
as a family. And they all decided to start the business as a family,
That's awesome.
and that was the origin story for Five Guys.
That's awesome.
And so to again, I mean, you look at the price of college education and where it's headed, and then you look at how easy it is to become an entrepreneur.
Right.
And at 14, 15, I mean, heck, one of my clients is an 18-year-old multimillionaire, because he got invested early into crypto.
Right.
And so it really begs the question, is that secondary education really necessary, or are you better off just jumping into the game early and taking the hard knocks and learning the lessons on your own?
Right. And then when you think about it, you can go to college and have a loan that's 6 figures, but you can't get a $10,000 business
Right.
loan.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
That makes no sense.
Right.
And when we have a saturated market where in any market right now in the corporate world where you have to have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree to get anything, everybody has that. So what exactly are you bringing to the table that's different and innovative?
Which is another
Absolutely
argument
nothing.
against paying for college tuition,
Right.
paying for everybody's college. Because
Right.
again, that only, which, yes, great, you're raising the bar, but at the same time, then that just makes that education more expensive, because
And that
everybody's at the,
meaningless.
everybody.
And that meaningless.
And it's
Sure.
right, it's that meaningless.
Yeah.
But what bothers me the most about it is that when you have kids that are graduating high school and they don't know where they want to go, they go into college and they get a general studies degree.
Yep.
And then they don't know what to do. So what do? They go and work at McDonald's. And then it's a dead end job because you can't it's hard to work your way up from just being a line cook. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then if you're not self-motivated and don't know how to critically think and you have this big, bright idea about making your own money, making your own way in life, you're going to struggle.
Right.
You're going to struggle. And that's how you create, generational poverty. And, my son, he's like, I don't want my kids to have to live paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
Like, and it's really funny because, people will look at my husband and think because he's white, we got it made.
Right.
And we don't, we struggle just like everybody else does. We're a middle-class family. Like it is what it is. So for him, he sees that and he understands that. And he's like, Mom, I don't ever want you to have to struggle. I don't ever want dad to struggle. I don't ever want my kids to struggle. Like, I'm going to be the first one to break, our generational issues. And I'm like, for me, hearing that from he's 14, y'all. He's 14. Like, that's.
But they're also so much more educated, and I mean life educated.
Yes.
And exposed to so much more than we ever were. Thanks to the internet.
Well,
thanks to the amount of
having parents like me
of information. And thanks to the amount of information that they have access to, and that the family dynamics also very different. I think, our generation encourages a lot more conversation and encourages a lot more like positive, life building dialogue, between parents and children.
And I don't ever figure things out for them. Like my son is my second son, my second born son, not my bonus baby, but even him, like as a kid, I never did things for him. So my 8-year-old is on the spectrum. He's high functioning autistic. And he's the one that we homeschool right now. But even with him, I don't solve problems for him. No matter how frustrated he gets, no matter how many meltdowns he has, no matter how bad the meltdown is, I have to teach him to think for himself and to try and figure it out on his own, because it's not about what happens to you. It's about how you react to what's happening to you and how you move through what's happening to you. That's adversity. Right. Adversity builds character. And that is where I think a lot of people fail. They're too afraid of failure, but they don't realize that failure is just a different way of not doing, right? It's part of the process. You have to be comfortable with failing.
Well, and
be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
And that's the beauty of our system here in the United States, that and we know this, other parts in the world, you fail once, that's it.
Right.
You're done. Whereas here in the States, you're able to fail and fail and fail again. And you can be able to have that. And then you can have second careers when you're 50, 60 years old. Just KFC. The guy didn't create that until he was in the 60s.
Yep.
I mean, that's the beauty of the living in this country. And I think our kids don't understand the full impact of what it means to be in this country, and how to grow up in this country, and how to take advantage of the resources that you have available. This new generation that's coming up, they're not going to be a group. They're not going to go into jobs that have them putting a square hole into a square peg. That's not happening anymore. The majority of these kids that are moving in are going to be able to have a small marketing companies, because they don't need to build a $4 or $5 million company.
Not if they're being told that the country that they live in is inherently racist, which is completely false.
You're completely forgetting what made this country great. And again, and I don't know. I was taught about slavery. I was taught about racism. Like what was?
I don't know who is coming up with these arguments. Like everybody talks about slavery. But the problem is that people don't understand slavery is not unique to America. No. Right. Slavery was not invented. Right. And it wasn't invented by Europeans. That's not how that even happened. Yeah. Like this is why we've gone so far back in education, because we don't know the truth about anything right now, as everybody's teaching all these kids all these false notions. Like it's completely mind-blowing when you take away their ability to think for themselves and their ability to be motivated, and the morale is sucked the life out of them because they're inundated with sex and gender and race, instead of really trying to figure out what they want to do in life and cultivating their minds, to be philosophers. And it's
so much easier to be a victim. Right.
Yes. Very true. It is.
And to what we were just talking about, I mentioned this actually, Anibal and I do another podcast where we talk no politics, but my point was, I just watched The Man in the Arena about Tom Brady, a phenomenal documentary about the 9 years he spent on, or more than 9 years, but it was 9 episodes of Tom Brady's time with the New England Patriots. And the one thing that they always talked about was the fact that they had very short-lived celebration of their wins, because you don't learn from winning. Right. You learn from losing. And so that even when they won, they would go into the locker room and Belichick would still chew them out. Yes. And he would say, you still messed up, and here are your mistakes, and this is what we need to work on, and this is what we improved on, even when they were out there spanking everybody else. Yeah. And because again, the loss is the only time when you lose. I mean, when you learn. Right. And while the wins are great, the problem is that if you win and you still don't evaluate your mistakes and the things that you could be doing better, then you become complacent.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's a test to our country right now in this moment.
Yeah.
But everything is on the opposite side of fear, though, too. Everything that you want to experience is what your willingness is to accept the opposite. So if you want to own your own business, are you willing to fail in order for you to learn how to run that business? Or are you comfortable at where you're at, giving yourself excuses? So it's not about, making sure that you have a crew behind you that supports you.
Right.
You should support yourself. You need to believe in yourself and support yourself.
And how
first.
quickly do you adjust to those screw ups, those losses, those mistakes?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's the whole point.
Again, we live in a country that allows you to fail and is perfectly fine with it. Not that it's celebrated, but it allows you to and get up from the ashes. And people love a comeback story. And it's just how the country is designed.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation. That liberals hate that phrase. But as an immigrant, and again, we're all immigrants on this table.
Yes, we are.
We understand completely what that phrase means.
Yes.
And it means so much to us because there wasn't organizations looking out for
Well, you didn't have a choice.
new Hispanic families moving to the States. There was the church and you had other things, but I remember times where I remember stories of mom and dad talking about their parents, about how there were weeks that they didn't see them because they were working 2 jobs and they had to, so that they would be able to have the lifestyle
that was my mom.
they wanted to.
Yo, my family was like, oh my God, y'all the rich kids. Y'all think y'all all that. Y'all think y'all all that living up in this townhouse. And I'm like, you don't understand what my mom did for that. She had to work 3 jobs. She busted her butt to get us out of the hood, because she was terrified that when her daughter walked out the hallway in the apartment building that somebody with a knife was going to come and stab her, or kids and adults peeing in the hallway. That's no way to live.
Yeah.
Who wants to raise their kids in that?
And that's what kind of pisses people off about the fact that they're going to start forgiving student loans. I know so many people that paid their way through college that worked those 2-3 jobs and still got their doctorate.
Or busted their ass just for scholarship.
Oh my God, Lauren did that, and she had to work really hard to get that stuff. And at the end of the day, you work so hard, and now you're hearing that people are going to get it forgiven. Right. And then and then you hear from I think it was AOC that made the comments it's good that you paid it off, but you should allow other people now to get the benefits of this program. And you're that's not an argument.
Just pay.
It's not like public education, where with public education, everyone needs that foundation of an education, and everyone is given that option, to take advantage of that education. And there are some serious ramifications societally for not getting that foundation of an education. That's not the case with secondary education.
Right.
Correct.
And again, now we're back at square one, where we've realized the detriment that we've created to our country, by not also encouraging trade schools.
Right. We need to encourage trade schools. If you can graduate with a certificate for IT, you should be able to graduate with a certificate in construction.
Well, and the fact that there's so many jobs out there where you could be making close to 6 figures or over 6 figures, doing jobs that robots, AI, is never going to be able to do.
Never.
Right.
They're never going to be able to fix your plumbing. They're never going to be able to fix your cars. They're never going to be able to, do a lot of things.
And those are $100,000 a year careers.
Right. Yeah.
And the opportunity to make your own business.
Right. And multi-million-dollar businesses.
And create your own generational wealth. I think that's what people are afraid of.
I mean, look at these, even your now neighborhood mechanic is charging $75 to $100 an hour to work in your car. I mean, it's not just the dealerships. Now dealerships, in fact, if anything, have lowered their pricing to compete with the mom and pop mechanic shops, because they realized that they had to.
One of the last things I'll say about this topic real quick is that we have a really cool neighborhood in Seminole Heights. We talk to all of our neighbors. During when hurricane season starts, we have a little bit of a community barbecue, and we get to talk to all the dads and all the families talk to each other because
before or after the floods.
Yes, because we know if something does happen, we're gonna have that little meeting, and I'm gonna need to bring nails, and people bring wood. It's just such a cool little neighborhood that we live in. Our neighbors, their 2 sons, are great kids. They played football growing up and everything else. And we were talking to them and look, the kids had no idea what they wanted to do. And their dad is an electrician and a plumber. And the first thing is, okay, you guys don't know what you want to do when you graduate? Come to work with me.
Right.
And now these kids are driving very nice cars because they're able to afford it because they're working good paying jobs.
And they have no expenses.
They have no expenses. They're still living at home.
Yep.
And their mom and dad are perfectly fine with them living at home, having they're just a few years outside of high school. And it's crazy.
And maybe they'll figure something else out and maybe they won't. And and
know what?
both
This
of those
is
are
such
okay.
And that's
a
perfectly
great
fine.
foundation
Yeah.
for those kids. I am more than happy to, like, when they have friends come over and everything else, and they're it's like 2:00 in the morning, they're still throwing the football. I'm like, I don't care. At least they're home.
Right.
At least they're not out and wilding out somewhere. And we're only 10 minutes away from Ybor.
My technical background is what has continuously given me a foundation of income, you know, regardless of career changes, regardless of
Lockdowns.
you know, yeah, exactly. If not for that skill set that I developed, you know, early on, thanks to a technical school, again, my life, my career would be very different.
Right.
And it, if anything, again, it taught me to be a more well-rounded individual. So you become more of that kind of Swiss Army knife for whatever office you enter into.
Right.
Because guess what? I don't need a graphic designer. I don't need a video editor. I don't need any of
Right.
this because I could do it all myself.
Well, and then this to me brings up the whole equity in education, right? Like we hear a lot of people talk about we need equity in education.
I don't know what that means.
Well, it doesn't mean what they think it means. So when you have equity in education, you have things like this, where you have community members of your community come in that are self-sufficient, right? They're business owners and they come in and they give back to the school that's in their neighborhood. That is how you build equity, right? When you build equity in your home, you make sure that you have enough, you know, money in your home, you know, so that if you sell it, you can get, you know, the best bang for your buck or whatever. You build equity in your business, you make sure that you have enough business, enough money, cash flow, so that if you sell it, you get enough money, right? It's the same thing with education. When you put the amount of money that is supposed to go into the education, right? And you make sure that our children are quality educated, then when they come out of school, that return on investment shows. That is how you build equity in education.
Right.
It's not equal outcomes for every person. And that's how they mean equity in education.
yeah, and the problem is that when you try to create equal outcomes or you force equal
Right.
outcomes, all you're doing is lowering the bar.
Well, it's
Completely
the
lower the
Simone
bar.
Biles effect. You guys remember
Yeah.
what happened to Simone Biles during the Olympics? That's literally what equity in education is.
That was such a weird situation.
Like, she was the best Olympian. And what did they do? They said, well, you're too good. And we're afraid that if the girls try it, because you're trying it and you're good at it, that if they try it, they're going to hurt themselves. So we're
She
just
got
going to not.
deducted. She got deducted points because of it.
Which is completely ridiculous. And that's what equity in education from their standpoint
And completely
will do
against
to
the
our kids.
meritocracy of the
Right.
Olympics.
Yes. It's so crazy. And it's
What?
just, it really is. It's weird.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching The Yard Sign, the most important relevant podcast, the most diverse conservative podcast in politics, especially tonight as we've got our special guest, Allie Marie Legge, who's joining us tonight. She's a second-time guest here on the show, candidate for school board, Hillsborough County District 6.
Countywide.
Countywide. Look up Allie. It's votealliemarielegge.com if you want to look up her website and join her campaign, donate
Yes,
to her
please.
campaign.
Yes, please.
Please do so. And again, as we are topic heavy here tonight with education, also make sure to look up Jennifer Licata if you happen to be in Hernando County. We got Stephanie Meyer out in Pinellas County. We got some amazing women running for school board all around the region.
Yep, Palm
and
Beach.
we encourage you to look out for them. Yeah, I'm sure you've just
Contreras,
really this has been
Angelique
Yeah.
from Palm Beach, and
Yeah, that's
Silvestri from Palm Beach, Jessie Thompson. She's from, oh my goodness, I can't remember where exactly, but we have people.
It's
I
really
think,
the
yeah.
Virginia effect, right? I mean, this, because although here in Florida, it's, always kind of been bubbling up, but Virginia really kind of opened everybody's
Yeah, that was a
eyes
turning point.
and said, wow, like
was a
this
turning
can
point.
really happen.
And then New Jersey actually did it, and
Yes.
everyone else got upset and pissed off as well.
Oh, you're
Yep.
talking about the, you're talking about
CRT
the child sex
Oh, yeah,
curriculum
Oh, yeah.
for first and second graders.
Yeah, what they do up north, I just don't know why they're so adamant about talking about sex among children. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it at all.
Well,
Well,
well
it seemed
teachers
like-
fighting it here at the Capitol. Did
Well,
you
it
see
seemed
that?
like they
I did
were.
see it.
It seemed like they almost did it intentionally, like just as to just be contrarian to what's happening here in Florida.
Well, it's happening everywhere in the United States. Like every state is dealing with this, whether you know it or not, which is why it's so important you pay attention to your school board race.
But
So get out.
But
August
driving around
23rd.
town here,
And vote.
how many New Jersey and New York plates are you seeing around town? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yes, but
gosh.
but again, the governor said it multiple times that he is watching the people that are coming into the state, and they the conservatives and moderates and independents from those counties and those states that are just done. They're just done with New York. They're done with the Northeast. They're done with the West Coast. And so, again, it's not having as a big an effect as you would have assumed with the numbers. If anything, our Republican numbers
but
are
that's
growing.
what I'm saying. There's still that exodus.
Yes.
Yeah,
You know,
it is a
because
mass
of the
exodus.
policies
Yes.
that they are implementing.
And
And
a lot more Republicans and independents than ever before, and our numbers
Yeah.
are growing statewide. Not in Hillsborough County, but
Yeah.
around the state we are.
we are broadcasting live to Clubhouse as well. We got our buddy Hector, who's been joining us on there tonight. And so if you want to
Hector.
just have an alternative way to listen to the show live, you can do so on Clubhouse. You can follow me at Jonny Torres, or you can look for the yard sign. We're usually up and running around 7 o'clock when the show goes live. And so keep an eye out for that. There's also the replay. You can find a replay of the show there as well.
7-ish.
And you can follow Allie at all platforms at Vote Allie Legge.
Look at that.
Vote Allie Legge. All right.
Yes.
I like
Twitter
it.
is
I know.
Twitter is
Bro, it's
Legge.
good.
Twitter is Legge for HS.
Oh, so you
Yeah,
have to,
HCSB. HCSB. I didn't think Twitter through. Sorry.
sorry.
Twitter fail.
Just
But
Still go in there
also
and change
on my website, I have a media page where you can go see all of the things that I've spoken at. I've spoken at BOCC meetings. I've spoken at city council meetings. I've been to Tallahassee several times. I've been to DC a few times. I spoke at the National School Board Association when they decided to call parents terrorists for going to school board meetings, and told them exactly how I felt about that. That's a really fiery speech. Just kind of got where the ball started rolling after that one. And then I spoke at the People's Convoy in North Carolina. One of the moms, she's the founder of Moms for America. She said that was the Patrick Henry speech of our time. So
Wow.
definitely check that one out. That was a
Yeah.
good one. But the most recent one I did was with our governor, Ron DeSantis. I was asked to speak on CRT and how it affected our family. And that was a very interesting situation. I spoke for about, I want to say like 7 minutes. So when I planned the speech, it was like 5 minutes long. And she was like, okay, you can go over it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And then I get up there.
Can't give you that kind of leeway.
And then I get up there and it's like all the clapping. Like, you don't understand. This room was filled to the brim. Like, there was no sitting. It was standing room only. There were 2 balconies. The balconies were full. Everybody in there is either Latino or like black, or I mean, there were some white people. Like, there was just, it was America in a small room.
Yeah.
That's really what it was. And it was great. And then what kind of choked me up a little bit was when I read, you know, we the people hold these truths to be self-evident, right? Like that part, the entire room echoed with saying it. And it was
Wow.
just one of the most surreal moments. It's like when you are in a stadium and you hear everyone sing, you know,
Sing
the
the
national
lyrics
anthem,
or the
or
national anthem,
they
yeah.
play, you know, everyone's saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Like, it kind
Right.
of gets you a little choked up. And
Sure.
that was one of those moments for me. And it's very important that we understand that we are all created equal, right? And we are endowed by our creator, whether you believe in, you know, Jesus as your creator, or source, or universe, or God, or whatever it is. You're still created with inalienable rights, right? Like, so nobody can take your freedoms and liberties away from you. And that is what the basis of our country stands for. So I went into that. And of course I called Governor Ron DeSantis a statesman because I had to bring it back old school, because he really does embody, you know, he's not a politician. He embodies what a true statesman is supposed to be, and that's protecting the rights of the people. So he knows how to be a true representative, and I look up to that because.
Well, there's times to be there's a time to be a politician, and then there's a time to be a statesman.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to always do what's best for, you know, the people that you're representing.
Sure.
And that
Look,
was really cool.
You know, on that note, I give major props for vetoing the net metering bill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which again goes completely against free market principles when it comes to again just general capitalism. But in regards to, it would have been a huge detriment to the solar industry, and the fact that, look, honestly, whether you know you're liberal or conservative, I mean, you know, our environment is our economy, here in Florida, and we should be encouraging people to go solar if they can.
Right.
And the fact is that this would have actually done the opposite. But anyways,
but yeah, so he actually gave my website a shout out, and that was pretty awesome. I really liked that. That was really cool.
Did you check the website traffic for that day?
I did. I got like 800 hits, and it was really awesome. So cool. Thank you, Governor Ron DeSantis, if you're watching.
Yeah, and that's vote AllieMarieLegge.com.
Yes, that was pretty cool.
4 more years.
Anibal, are we going into a recession?
Yes.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
The March numbers came out for the U.S. economy, actually shrank by 1.4% in quarter one in 2022. The Treasury yield has hit a 10-year high at 3%. Manufacturing activity has slowed to 1.1 and 1/2 of this quarter. We're having huge issues when it comes to U.S. crude settling above $105 a barrel. It's a gain of almost 0.5% in one day. We're having wild swings within the market, trying to figure out how that's going to settle. And I'll have to say that I do see us moving in that direction. Now, what that looks like on a national level and what that looks like on a local level are two different things. Yeah. I think what's going to help Florida and other very southern and Midwest states is that they're still getting 3,000 to 5,000 people moving a month.
Sure.
That those people need services. Those people need Jamba Juices. Those people need Shake Shacks. Those people need Applebee's and Starbucks. Like that's still going to happen no matter what.
Crumble
that's still
cookie.
Building. I've yet to go into that.
I haven't had one.
Jeremiah's.
I haven't gone there at all.
Are they really good?
Oh yeah.
Crumble cookie.
Yeah.
And so I think things are going to continue to grow, and we're still going to need hotels and people working in hotels. But I think what's going to happen is the recession is going to. It's going to be a weird recession. It's not going to be 08. It's not going to be what happened in when the bubble burst. I just don't think that. I think we're letting a lot of air out in the market, and that's perfectly fine. Last week we had a $900 swing, so I think that's what's happening now. But I don't see it affecting us as much as people assume it's going to affect us.
Right.
I would love to see some steam released out of the housing market, but I don't see that happening right now. And again, it'll
level out.
It'll level out,
so.
but we're not seeing a situation where. And again, this is funny, but when everyone is a real estate agent, then you know there's a problem. Well, we're not there yet.
We're back at 2005, 2006 levels where you have. People getting, 10 offers on a home in a single day. The absorption rate is north of 90 to 95% every month in terms of what goes on, what goes on up for sale and what gets sold.
So, I
mean, that's ridiculous.
What is causing an irregularity when it comes to the market is the fact that you have these big, large conglomerates coming in and buying single family homes. Yeah. That is happening now. That's causing the problem in a lot of communities because you don't have locals cannot buy in their own local market. And that's becoming a problem. And I think Congress will do something about that.
Did you hear about the soy sauce company?
No.
There's a soy sauce. It's one of the major soy sauce companies that is actually buying up a ton of real estate surrounding where their processing plan is, where their processing and distribution plan is. They've actually been buying up millions of dollars in real estate directly around that property there. No, it was just kind of a weird anomaly that, again, like it's now almost such a sure thing right now in American real estate that you've got these foreign entities that are all getting into the real estate game.
Right. Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, you have a lot of foreign buyers that are going into the country now. They get a visa if they spend a certain amount of money into the country, so they become quasi citizens. We're having
I'm a capitalist, but I'm also not completely against what Canada's trying to do, which is to stop these corporations from coming up and buying large numbers of homes. Because
I don't disagree with you. BlackRock, which is one of the companies that are actually doing that, is causing a lot of distortments.
Well, they're inflating the market.
Yeah, and that's what's causing a bigger problem. And so,
well, it's not even just that; it's like it's seeping into our schools too, because we end up having overcrowding. This is what South County is dealing with right now. We have a lot of people that are moving here and that are, buying these houses, and there's multiple developments that are getting put up, and we don't have enough schools to fit all these people.
We don't have the infrastructure.
We don't even have the infrastructure to fit all these people with the school. Like it's just,
I mean, there's a school that I believe is currently being held for opening because the roads around the school are not viable. They're not ready.
Get
they're
it
not
together,
prepared to,
county commission.
They're just the growth. Again, it's 2006,
Well, that's
2007
true.
all
Yeah.
over again.
But then you have
the growth is
yeah.
faster than the infrastructure can be built.
But you have a county commission, and I'll play this card, that doesn't understand that there has to be a symbiotic relationship between
Yes.
developers
Yes.
and infrastructure.
Say it again.
And that's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
They don't have the vision
Yes,
either.
we want, exactly. There is no vision.
Can you
No.
louder for the people in the back, please?
We know Hillsborough County is a great place to live, raise children, and have a business. But there has to be some kind of vision out there when it comes to the development of Hillsborough County. Do I want Waimama to have 1,000+ single family unit communities? No. Why? Because Waimama doesn't want that. Does
Right.
Keystone want that? No.
No.
Let the communities dictate what they want, and then allow the communities like South Tampa and some type.
Well, but that's how you end up with
Brandon.
incorporated cities, and then you end up like Pinellas.
But you have that already, where you have parts. Keystone is a perfect example. They have a plan where they do not allow for large development. Why can't that be recommended in other communities that don't want that either? And that's because no one's having this conversation.
but those people got to go somewhere.
No, and I agree, but you know what? Tampa is more than willing to fill in the majority of lots. There's still plenty of lots and plenty of land in the city of Tampa and in Temple Terrace and some parts of Brandon that can be.
Yeah, but the
filled
problem is that the cost. I mean, right by your house, literally walking distance from your house. I mean, you've got $500,000 townhomes going.
Yes,
in.
and they all got
ridiculous.
and they all got sold.
Right.
And so now, this is just the gentrification, though. The thing is, though, we can build, and if we allow them to build a little bit more of density, then that reduces the cost per unit. But because the county is not thinking that far in advance when it comes to density levels, then no one's having this conversation.
Yeah, because that's the problem right now. If you want an entry level home, you literally are either going to have to go to another county.
Yeah.
Or you're basically on the outskirts, on the very fringes of Hillsborough County. So you're talking Waimama, Ruskin, Sun City Center, or on the north end, you're talking about, New Tampa, forget it. New Tampa's been expensive for decades.
Always.
And then if you're going anywhere closer to the city of Tampa, you might as well just go to Pasco.
Well, you have Lutz, you have other parts. Again, I think we need to start talking about the density levels in Hillsborough County and allowing for communities to make those decisions.
Do you want to know what I find to be really weird? We can have multi-house developments go up in like 3 months, and we still have a firehouse that hasn't been built in over a year.
Well, again, it's yeah.
What are your priorities, Hillsborough County?
No, it's again anything the government touches. I mean, it's going to cost triple, and it's going to take triple the time to build it.
That's why I always I tell people, ask a military spouse, family member, or personnel what the government does right.
Yeah. Right.
Commissary.
Kill people. That's it. Kill people and collect taxes.
Pues.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching The Yard Sign.
On that note.
I know. At the end of the day, I think Q2 of 2022, we're going to see a continuous shrinkage. And odds are, come the elections in November, I had to go there. Come the elections in November, we'll probably be definitely
That's
in
why
a
he's our
recession.
expert.
No, again, I think we're going to see 3 quarters, because if you have 3 consecutive quarters of recession, of shrinkage, then your economy is in recession. So if the U.S. gets into recession, China is going to implode because they're already having
Well,
problems.
we go
And
into
then not even
recession.
just-
I mean, the general election in 26 is just going to be, or in 24 is just going to be. I mean,
Oh, that's going to be interesting.
Allie, I don't know what kind of wave you're gonna float up into to get
Listen.
elected. But honestly, the
I don't
worse
know.
it gets, I don't know what's gonna happen.
I'm good
in
either way.
November.
Like,
This is gonna be like a plus 15 wave, and I'm like, I have no idea what we're
I don't
gonna
either.
do with that.
Yeah.
what I am concerned about, though, with this whole recession talk is that we have 2 boards in Hillsborough County that want to raise taxes. So our board of county commissioners has already stolen $500 million from the people illegally. It has been determined that it was illegal the way they went about it by court. And they still haven't figured out how to give our money back, which we're all like, where's our money?
It's just
Where is
sitting.
it?
It's
It's
just
just
sitting
sitting
in the
there.
account.
they'll face the wrath.
Right.
They'll face the wrath for
But
that.
they also are trying to do another tax increase. It's like 1%, right?
Yep.
1%. 1%. Not a cent. Not 1 cent. Not a half cent. 1%
Right. Yeah.
tax, which is going to be astronomical, especially for people that
Well,
are
it's-
low income
as you
or
know-
fixed income. But our school board too is doing the
I was
same
just gonna
thing.
say,
Is it also 1%?
It's 1 cent this time.
gosh.
It's 143 million or 126 million dollars a year for 4 years. That barely scratches the surface of what our debt is.
But again, because they refuse to be fiscally responsible and make the
Right.
tough decisions. You know, I've said this time and time again. If you've talked to any of the former school board members or even some of the current ones, they'll tell you there are schools that should be closed.
Yes.
Yes.
There are schools that we should be combining.
Yes.
There's plenty of middle management that
Yes.
needs to go.
Goodbye.
You know,
It's
and
like-
they
it's
don't
like they
want to
wa-
make those
They
tough
don't.
decisions.
It's like
But
they
you know
want
what?
to
They would
go
rather
into
raise
receivership.
people's taxes.
They want the school board to go into receivership so then other people in Tallahassee and other parts can make the decisions because these people don't want to make those decisions.
Well, that's not leadership.
Well,
And if
corporate's
that's
not-
then
it's
if,
not
if that's
leadership.
how you feel about it, then you shouldn't be in a leadership position, and you should vacate your seat, like I have told.
If Hillsborough County
many
goes
people.
into receivership, the best thing I've already heard about the story, if it happens, then the unions can no longer automatically deduct their dues, and so you would have to have teachers write checks to the union
Yeah.
for them to get to their dues.
Well, Superintendent Addison's not going to have Richard Corcoran
Oh.
to protect him anymore.
He's
so.
out by like the summer. I was at that ceremony on Friday. Last
That's what I'm
Friday.
saying.
And like you are,
Senator Manny Diaz, right?
yes,
Yeah.
I sent you.
Sad
an
I missed
invitation.
that. I'm so mad.
I know. I invited you.
I know, but
Let's
my
talk about
babies
that
were.
later.
All right.
That's fine.
On that note, thank you
On that
everybody for
note.
watching. Don't forget the video version of our podcast up on Facebook, YouTube. Subscribe, like, follow, share, and then, of course, catch the audio version of our podcast on your favorite podcast platform at the Tech Overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and Samsung podcast platforms. We appreciate you so much for listening tonight. We'll see you back here next Monday night. On
Where are your
behalf
glasses?
of Allie Marie, they've been here. I just, I don't know, I was kind of insecure about them today.
Well, if I could say one last thing,
Please.
Tito.
I want people to understand that parental rights, parental rights and childhood innocence is not a partisan issue.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, again, Virginia proved that.
It is a nonpartisan issue.
Yeah.
Parental rights and childhood innocence is a nonpartisan issue. Everybody should be concerned about parents being locked out of schools.
Well, we didn't get into the controversial bill. I mean, because
which
I didn't
one?
think-
There's so many.
Well,
no.
well, we
It
didn't
is-
get into it mostly
Boo-boos,
because
it is 9 p.m.
Listen,
it's gone.
I'm ready.
It's done. No, we will have a separate meeting for a separate time. But it's a school night, y'all.
But that being said,
Yes, sir.
I just mentioned it because again,
Yeah.
I think the legislation opened parents' eyes, people's
Yeah.
eyes to the fact that not everything is what they seem, and I think Democrats played their hand and they played it too heavy, and
That's why you should vote for Allie Marie Legge
exactly
on August 23rd
yes.
for Hillsborough County School Board countywide. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, we subject you, so we don't have to subject you to any more of Anibal's dancing.
we are 15 generals down.
What? I don't even know
We
what that meant.
took out another 3 generals in Ukraine.
Oh
by
my
the way.
God! Good night, everybody. So long from Tampa. We'll see you back next Monday.
One more thing. Da 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 da.